All right, we'll go ahead and get started. It's 1:03. Thanks everyone for joining us for the afternoon session on the FERNS system changes around really the Senate Bill 1501. It's small forest land owner changes that'll be occurring on December 1st. This has been a project that we've been working on since about February to try and get done. And we'll be launching it on December 1st to allow everyone a full month to notify for 2024. So let me say that feel free to raise your hand or enter a question into chat. At any point during the presentation, we can stop and answer questions about different parts of the system, or we also have the subject matter experts around the small forest land owner offices like minimum option or forest conservation tax credit or the SFISH program, those in road condition assessments, those types of questions we can answer anything that you have today. And then we're also available after this to answer any additional questions that come up. So let me go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen. And I am going to start my presentation here. So today I'll be talking about the changes in the FERNS system around the small forest land owner options that they have for taking advantage of differences in stream buffers, and the processes around that. I'll be also talking about the changes for everyone around that are taking place starting for 2024 notifications. And so that'll get the overall changes done. And if you are not a small forest land owner, you're welcome to leave at that time if I haven't answered your questions. And then we'll go into the details of the small forest land owner options within FERNS that'll be available December 1st. And then at the end, we'll talk about kind of what's coming next, what type of changes will be coming in 2024 to round out the functionality that we weren't able to deliver on December 1st, and then complete some of the functionality around year-end reporting for that have yet to be developed because it's not really necessary until the end of 2024. So let me go ahead and get into it. The two changes that are universal for everyone who notifies beginning in 2024, one is a big one, which is the second point on here, which is for all notifications, you have to do we're calling it accomplishment reporting, but completion reporting. You have to mark it as either being complete, or you did not operate, it didn't happen, or continue it into the next year. And that reporting must be done by December 31st of starting in 2024, December 31st of 2024. And that is for all notifications. There's a few exceptions out there that will not be necessary to do that, but those are kind of some minor things. The bulk of notifications that come in that are submitted will have to have this completion reporting done. Also an exception to that December 31st date is if you're a small forest land owner and you select the minimum option as your riparian management area plan, you actually have to report the completion, the result of being complete, or you're not going to operate 90 days after the activity end date. And that activity end date is actually what you mark as the end date in the notification. So you have 90 days beyond that point to mark it. But so that's only for the minimum option if you're a small forest landowner. Everything else is December 31st. So that is for everyone. whether you're a small forest land owner or not. The big changes are definitely around the small forest land owner notification process. So for a harvest, if you're a small forest land owner, you must select the riparian management area practice you're going to have. And I'll get into the details of what those are when I show the system. There's 5 choices and then some exceptions that are built in there for kind of outside cases that may still qualify for RMA choices. You must attest that the forest land owner qualifies as a small forest land owner. And I'll get into the details of what those qualifications are and how you attest to that. I'll show that in the system. You need to attach a completed road condition assessment. And that is a report that is submitted for small forest land owner harvest notifications that talk about the roads that are within the operation unit and the condition of those roads. And if there are identifies any abandoned roads or if there are any stream crossings that need to be upgraded or replaced. And then identifying whether they would possibly qualify for a grant from the SFISH program that would help offset those costs. And then again, the accomplishment reporting, complete, did not operate, or continue the notification into the next year. Also, part of that accomplishment reporting is if you choose the minimum option, you have to select, or you have to tell us what the lineal feet were that you used as part of that minimum option. And again, I'll get into the details of what that is and how you report that in a little bit. So I'm going to actually exit out of here and go into the system and start talking about some of the changes that you'll start seeing on December 1st. So the first thing you'll see, now this is a test system. It's not perfect. We're still, wordsmithing, and some of the stuff doesn't work exactly how we designed it. So all of that's going to be worked out here in the next couple of weeks. And before we launch. So you may see some of that mixed in here as we're going through the demonstration, but realize that we're working on it, and we already have another version that we're going to be testing here in the next couple of days. But the first thing you'll see is this red banner on the top, and this is to draw attention about the new changes that are coming to Forest Practices Act and how it affects all forest land owners. And when you click on that, that actually takes you to the new changes, that's the virtual training that we're in right now. But the SFO programs and what those are and how those changes are available starting in 2024. So that's what that link is there for, and kind of draws that and educates users as they come in. This banner will be here for about 6 months, and then we'll remove it. And but we have a permanent link down here on the bottom that will be part of that. And do we have questions? Okay, someone's having sound systems. Okay, making sure that there is these things. But when you get into and log into the system and get into the notification, the thing that you'll notice first is that when you come into the first page, there is another subcategory under notified departments of forestry and revenue for your intent to harvest. And that's where the changes take place for the small forest landowner. This basically tells us that you're going to harvest as a small forest landowner on forest land. And here we have information of, does this apply to me? And when you select that, an information box pops up. I'll get into what that is here in a little bit. But really the changes for everyone is really what I want to talk about first, so we can kind of let the non-SFO people drop from the call, and then I can focus on the small forest land owner stuff and answer all the questions that you have there. So this is how it looks like on the page if you are not a small forest land owner. The map is the same, and the map is the same for really everyone. As you can see here, I have a unit and a road in here. The layers that we have, they're actually available now, but that are new for the 2024 are the debris flow traversal areas, the debris flow traversal subbasins, and the designated sediment source areas. And as you can see, all those popped up, and you can see some of those are within the units where I've drawn. This is some of the new regulations that are part of this change for 2024, and how that affects notifying is if you have any of that within your unit, your operation unit, it brings up the new requirement of you have to have a non-statutory written plan that is attached to the notification. Now, it doesn't have the normal statutory written plan requirements, meaning there's no public comment period, there's no visibility by the public for that document. It's still an other document, but it is now required because of those new regulations of 2024. There's still the same legal written requirement for written plans for all the other notification areas, roads, and if they're near a stream and all of that, that's still required. But if there are any of those, like the debris traversal areas within your notification area, the non-statutory plan is required, and this legal notice is here. The other part of this, which you can see, is when you have this road activity and you mark it as road construction, this new question pops up. And so this will pop up on all new road construction. And this is basically this is a requirement that you must answer this. And it says, have you investigated using roads to reduce or eliminate new road construction, including roads on other land ownership? And you have to select yes or no. There's nothing happens if you answer no. It just lets ODF know that you haven't investigated that. And the forester may have a conversation with you stating, hey, let's take a look at this and let's try to minimize additional roads being built. But there's no requirement behind this other than stating, have you investigated looking? And it's a yes or no question. That's all that's there. And then on the other part of requirements starting in 2024 notifications is the activity completion. Now, this is a SFO notification that I submitted, and I used it in the earlier demonstration, and it has a unit and it has a road. It's the same map that we just saw. And I reported completed on this one, but this one is still open. And what you'll see here is, and what you'll see with all notifications starting in 2024 is for the number of units are there, you have to report the completion of that. And there'll be really three options. It is, did you complete that operation? This will say did not operate. So this means you didn't start it and you're not going to complete it. And so you just didn't operate in 2024. And then going forward every year, did it operate or not operate? If you didn't complete it, but you did operate it, then you would go ahead and continue this notification into 2025. And that's at the end of the year. You would notify the forester requesting that it would be continued. And then if the stewardship forester approves, they will go ahead and continue that notification for you into 2025. And then at that point, at the end, December 31st, 2025, you would have to report whether it's complete or did not operate. And that is true of all notifications, and then for all units. Right now, the only thing you can do is really just sort these by the different things here. We are designing, part of what we're designing for the end of the second version and the end of 2024 is the ability to select them all and mark them all complete or did not operate, or manage them easily, especially if you have a large number of units on a notification. So that's part of the tools that'll be coming out in later on in 2024. But we weren't able to get that built in there just because we had a tight deadline. So that really is all that is the changes for non-small forest landowner notifications. Now they both apply to small forest landowners, but this is the only part that applies to non-SFO in this presentation. The rest of this, from this point onward, I will be talking in detail about the changes around the small forest land owners and how they would complete the notification process. So if you're not a small forest land owner, you're welcome to drop at this time and enjoy the rest of the sunny afternoon. Let me check my questions before I go on to that. So the question is, should non-statutory written plans be submitted as written plan with a map or other document? And they should be submitted as an other document. Submitting a document as a written plan with map opens it up to the 14-day public comment period and all the review there. So a non-statutory written plan should be an other document, and that removes that waiting time for anything and a review time in that. Are there any changes to the PDM process? Unfortunately, not at this time. It is a conversation that's going on around streamlining the PDM process and also incorporating smoke management functionality within FERNS, but that is beyond second half of 2024 conversation if we can get the funding for that. Did I miss any other questions? Okay, good deal. All right, so now I'm going to get into the small forest land owner functionality. And I'm going to go to the first page here. Whoop, I may have the... let me go to the front page. Here, I'll show you what it looks like. So before when I showed that this little information box pops up, this is what you'll select if you're a small forest land owner and you are going to be doing a harvest. And if selecting this box opens up all the functionality for small forest land owners when they are notifying. Now, there are a lot of requirements to submit a notification as a small forest landowner. So we have included this information box on the front page that kind of summarizes what you need to do before you can actually successfully submit a notification, because there are some pieces of information that you need to have to successfully support it or submit it. So the first one is each forest landowner needs to be certified as a small forest landowner. And the qualifications for that are you have to own less than 5,000 acres of Oregon forest land. You have to have less than 2 million board feet of harvested timber per year for the past 3 years. That's on average. And you intend to harvest 2 million board feet or less for the next 10 years. So that's the first step in qualifying. Or sorry, that's the 3 steps of qualifying for a small forest land owner. To submit a notification, you also need a road condition assessment, and it must be uploaded to the document sections of the notification. Without this road condition assessment, you cannot submit a notification. It actually needs to be completed. And let me show you what the just approved, brand new, off the presses version looks like. It used to be about 5 pages. Now they've condensed it down to something. This is available on the ODF SFO webpage. Right now, we don't have it linked to the right document in FERNS, so I didn't want to show that clip, that link. But it really has 5 pieces of information that you need to include with your notification. So it really comes down to drawing a map of the location, and it can be a simple little map. And the road condition assessment applies to either roads and water crossings within the parcel where the harvest is taken care of, for parcels of your forest land that you own. And if there are no roads or water crossings or abandoned roads, you can actually skip this whole thing and sign it and include it. If you do have roads, you need to mark the condition of the roads, and there's different types of things here, whether there's either dirt or signs of erosion or flowing water. And so this is, if there are any roads that need any kind of repair. There's also a selection here that says they were assessed and none of this applies. All the roads are in great condition. And then a total miles of roads within the unit. Are there any water crossings? And then they're really looking for a latitude and longitude of where those water crossings are, what year it was installed, and what condition is in. And this is helping ODF identify any water crossings that may need to be repaired or replaced. And that gets you also get involved in the SFISH grant process to identify whether these crossings qualify for grant funding for payment or subsidizing. And then here's where you can enter additional details about the water crossings. I'm not going to get into that. It's a good way to put everyone to sleep after lunch. Are there any abandoned roads on the property? You don't know about any, or there are, and total number of miles of abandoned road. And then here's the SFISH stands for Small Forest Land Investment in Stream Habitat, is what SFISH is an acronym for, and it's grants to small forest land owners for road improvement projects and stream crossings. So this is documenting the water crossing types. This is kind of additional lines of information if you have more than what's included here. So this is a lot of information. A lot of small forest lands owners may not know this. And this is when they would they would contact the local ODF office, and a forester will actually work with you to complete this form. Some will actually come and visit, or some will work with you over the phone, depending on what kind of information the small forest land owner has. But really, part of the funding package around the SFO was funding additional foresters to help with this type of information. So reach out to ODF. They are there to help you complete this and also talk about your project, and also the RMA options that are available to you, depending on what your project is and how close you'll be working to the stream. So I'll talk about the RMA options here in a little bit. So, but again, I'll plug several times. ODF is available to help the small forest landowner complete this and complete the notification process. So that is here. Here's your RCA. And once you have that RCA completed, once you know whether you qualify as a small, the landowner qualifies as a small forest landowner, then you can start the notification process. Now, you won't see any changes to the mapping other than what I showed before. It's the same. And again, I'm using the same unit and the same road as a small forest landowner. So now I go to the activities and how this changes for a small forest landowner from when we saw it as a non-small forest landowner is there's a riparian management area practice option that must be selected. So this is where you will tell ODF what kind of practice am I going to use for managing the riparian area. That's the buffers around the streams and sources of water. So one of the selections is it's not applicable and you're not going to be harvesting anywhere near a stream or an RMA. So it doesn't even apply to me. I'm not going to worry about it. Standard practice is I'm going to be using what the new rules are in 2024. So the increased buffer sizes for fish streams and non-fish streams, I'm just going to use those and I'm not even going to worry about any other things that are available to small forest landowners. I'm just going to go with the standard practice. Another option is you're going to use standard practice, but you are going to take advantage of the forest conservation tax credit. And what that forest conservation tax credit is it takes the value of the stumpage value of the timber between what the new buffer is and the old buffer is, and gives you a tax credit for that timber because you're not harvesting it. You're conserving that timber as additional buffer around the stream, but you are getting a tax credit for that. Now, this is a pretty detailed process to go through, and ODF will help walk you through the process. When you select this as your option, an email will be sent to the forester, and an email will also be sent to the Forest Conservation Tax Credit administrator, and both of them will be reaching out to help through the process because it requires going out and determining the value of the stumpage, mapping it correctly, getting that tax credit through the county assessor's office and eventually to the Department of Revenue, which will give that credit. But setting up that conservation area basically puts a 50-year lien on that timber area for no harvest. So that conservation area needs to remain in that area for 50 years. And we will be tracking what those areas are. So if there's a change in ownership or a change of practice, we will still be able to capture what that is and say, hey, your harvest is near this conservation area. Be sure you don't harvest in there. Or if you do, then I think you lose the conservation area and you have to pay back the tax credits. But that's further down the road. So that's the Forest Conservation Tax Credit, and it is a detailed, several detailed steps. And once again, ODF has people here to help small forest land owners through that process. The other option available to small forest land owners is the minimum option, and that is that allows the small forest land owner to harvest down to the old buffers. So I'll take the simplest one is a large stream, fish-bearing stream. The old buffer was 100 feet. The new buffer is 110. If you choose this minimum option, you can actually harvest down to 100 feet. Now, this option is conditional in that your, as we call it, HUC 10 watershed needs to have this option available because there is only 10% of the small forest land owned stream length that is available per year in each drainage. And what that means is after there's been some harvest using the minimum option, sometimes that lineal feet is not available in that drainage. So what we have yet to develop, but what will eventually happen, are some drainages will not have minimum option available. And so each year we will either say it is available or it isn't. And once we mark a drainage not available, this minimum option functionality will not appear when you're notifying. So in 2024, all the drainages are available. There's no restrictions. As we go into 2025 and start calculating lineal feet available and what's been used, some of those drainages will not be available probably in 2025 and fluctuate in the as the years go on. It's a once a year calculation, and so it is just something that when you notify and it is available, just know it's available and just go forward. Again, any questions, contact ODF, talk to the forester. They'll answer questions and walk through the process. And then the last part of this RMA practice option is for significantly disproportionately impacted parcels. So this is something that is not very common. It's pretty rare. We expect to have probably fewer than 10 of these a year. But what this means is if you are a small forest land owner and have a parcel, in order to qualify, it has to have a dwelling and it has to be 10 acres or more. It has to have an encumbrance from all minimum option RMAs greater than 20% of the forested acreage of the parcel. You don't have to worry about what that means at this point. And it generates timber to sustain management activities, contributions to income, estate investment. So there's some specific qualifications in there. So if you think you qualify, again, market a stewardship forester and someone from the SFO office will contact you and determine whether you truly qualify. And if you do, walk you through the processes of taking advantage of that. With this options, you can take advantage of the forest conservation tax credit at a 125% of the stumpage value. And that's something available when you qualify. Or you can use the minimum option with the exemption from the watershed cap. So if you're in a watershed that is not available for minimum option and you qualify for this, you can take advantage of the minimum option. So I am going to mark minimum option here just as a thing. Again, I'm just going to show on the activity for road construction whether I've investigated. On here, I'm just picking some dates. And marking myself as the operator. So as you go through this process, let me stop and see what kind of questions we have. Yeah, Christina, yes. It's SFOs only. So for all others, it's report due 12/31, and road construction you have to mark it as yes. That's the only changes right now for non-SFOs. And how do you know when culverts were installed? I don't know how to answer that. If you don't know, probably work with the forester and they can probably give a guess of when it was installed. It doesn't need to be exact. it could literally be a decade. I think this was installed in the 70s, okay, or the 80s or the 90s. And that gives us an idea of what the forest practices were at that time, and whether even if it's operating how it should be, whether it still qualifies as a stream crossing, because those regulations have changed drastically in the last couple decades around that. So I'm assuming I'm answering that correctly, Stacy. Let me know if I'm not. And why do I mark board feet for road construction? It's a requirement from the Department of Revenue. I get this question all the time, that they get a significant number of new road construction in a forested area has timber harvest associated with it. So they believe that you basically can't construct a new road through forested land without harvesting timber at some point. You can put 1 MBF in there. All this does is trigger if it's just a road construction notification and you put 1 MBF, all this does is trigger a flyer sent from the Department of Revenue that says, hey, remember to report your timber harvest income on your taxes at the end of the year if you harvested more than 25,000 board feet. The first 25,000 board feet are exempt from any taxes. So if you harvest 1,000 board feet or less, you basically don't even need to report that on your taxes. But don't take it from me, I am not an accountant. I'm not a tax accountant, but that's what I've been told from DOR. So we have, I'll show you what it looks like. We've got the RMA practice option. We've selected minimum option. We have road construction. We have clear cut. Everything's here. This is another change for small forest landowners. So you'll see here that under landowner, we've marked each landowner on this notification must qualify as a small forest landowner or have special circumstances, which is on the page. Please certify that the status of each landowner. So this is something new for small forest landowners. And if you add, I'm going to mark myself as the landowner. Here you'll get the alert saying certification of the small landowners SFO status is required. Click certify SFO status below. And this is where it will come up and say, you have to meet all of these standards, which are you hold common ownership or own less than 5,000 acres of forest land in Oregon. You have harvested no more than an average of 2 million board feet for the past 3 years. And you affirm that you do not expect to exceed the average yearly volume of more than 2 million board feet in the next 10 years. And this is where you say they qualify as a small forest landowner, or they may have exceeded it, but I've got this exception that I'm processing through ODF. I'm going to mark it as I certify. And here is this. So this has to occur in order to submit the notification. If you get to the end and submit, and it says you need to certify the forest landowner, you have to go back to this contacts page and certify. This certification is per notification, not per landowner. So if I were to submit another notification 6 months from now, and I'm the landowner, I will have to recertify that this still qualifies for me, because there are changes in ownership conditions for landowners all the time. It's fluctuating. They increase their land ownership, they decrease it. So this is why we ask that each time a notification is submitted, you have to certify the small forest landowner qualifies. That's on there. Let me see if there's a question. How will the Department of Revenue handle operations that continue from 2023 and have new notifications submitted in 2024 since continuations are not allowed? Good question, Megan. Each year you get that flyer for it. So even if you would have continued it from 2023 to 2024, you would have gotten a flyer for 2023 because you submitted it then, and then you completed it in 2024. Again, it is just an informational little postcard, I think, or flyer that comes in the mail. It is nothing from the Department of Revenue says specifically this is what you notified. It just, they are making you aware that you may need to report that. So if you submitted something in 2023 and you have something for 2024, you'll just get one flyer each year. That's all it is. We have all the rest of our information there. We have our timber owner. Site conditions are have not changed. So the site conditions are the same. What has changed is on the documents side of things, you will now see there's a written plan with map. There is the other document, and there is the road condition assessment. And this is where you have to attach that document. So I will go in here. I'm going to attach my road condition assessment, and that fulfills that requirement. You still may need to have a statutory written plan with a map as part of this. And yeah, you still attach those, and those still have a 14-day comment period when you submit them. But the RCA is basically just like an other document. It is not visible to the public. There's no waiting period associated with it. There is a review by a forester for completeness. So they need to make sure that the 5 pieces of information are included on that. So if you submit an RCA that isn't complete, the stewardship forester will contact you and say, hey, this RCA isn't complete. You're missing this piece of information. And then you'll have to send the forester the completed one. They'll attach it for you, and they'll mark it as you have submitted a complete. If you submit a notification without a complete RCA, it is not a valid notification. So the 15-day waiting period doesn't start until the RCA is submitted complete. On this page, we have included a link to the RCA and then some more information. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for users to be able to get the documentation and get the information they need kind of every step of the way here. Do I have a question? So many notifications are completed by the operator. Will they be certifying small forest landowner and completing the RCA? I'm not whoever submits the notification needs to certify that the landowner is truly a small forest landowner. And I'm not sure if there needs to be a completed RCA. So if the operator cannot do that, the ODF forester can work with the operator on that if they're familiar enough with the parcel that's being harvested, or may have to work with the actual landowner to complete the RCA. But that is what ODF is here for, is to ensure that this information is as accurate as possible. The operator will obviously have to work with the landowner to ensure that they qualify as a small forest landowner. So we get here, all this information is the same again because of the debris traversal areas and all of those new changes. There's this updated legal notice. You can see here it's a test document that I've attached, and I'm going to go ahead and submit this. And what you'll see here, have invalidates in there. Yeah. Now I'm going to go to summary and submit. And what you'll see here is because we chose the minimum option on this notification, it says the operator must report completion of the SFO minimum option harvest activities within 90 days of completion of the operation. This will change. It's not the actual operator that has to report this. And it's any party on the notification can report the completion. So here is where you would report. And again, this is the lineal feet. So you have to report how much lineal feet you took advantage of along fish streams and non-fish bearing streams. So I'm going to just mark that. And once you complete the lineal feet, you can mark it as complete or did not operate. You can't mark it as complete without updating the lineal feet. So I'm going to mark that just to show how it works. And then what you'll see here is that it has been marked completed, and this one is still open. So the reporting, the activity completion is here at the I want to drop-down menu, but it's also down here for report the activity completion right above the units. So we've added two different areas that you can go and look at that. The other thing I want to show is here. This is a non-SFO, and I think, oh, that's not it. This is a non-SFO, and also for any SFO notification that isn't using minimum option, this warning will come up and it'll say the operator must report on all activities by December 31st of this year, unless a continuation has been issued. So for here, let's say we've completed the road construction where we've started the clear cut, but we didn't complete it. By December 31st, you'll need to let the stewardship forester know you want to continue that notification. And then once you continue that, this will update the deadline for the following year. So December of 2024, you continue the notification. It'll say the completion reporting deadline is December 31st, 2025. So it'll move it along as soon as you're there. One of the things we're building in for this is around these deadlines are reminders for the end of the year. So what we're thinking is kind of that December 1st, the system will go through and say, if you haven't marked these completed, or you haven't or did not operate, if you haven't done a status and it hasn't been continued, you'll get a reminder saying, hey, you need to complete this by December 31st of the year, and kind of be sure and remind everyone to go in here. We're also looking at in about February of 2025 running a report for all of the foresters so they can reach out and just kind of remind everyone that this is something new and that it needs to be completed. So that is some of the stuff that will be coming up in 2024 to help this process, because we know this is new. And honestly, having it at the end of the year, a lot of people will forget, especially if you completed your project in the summer and you haven't logged into FERNS for a while, you're going to forget about this stuff. So those emails will be kind of a gentle reminder like, hey, you got to log in and you got to complete this. So I'm going to go back to my presentation and talk about really what, additional functionality that we're going to be having for the end of the year. So the reminders around the year-end completion reporting, and all of the tools that we'll use to allow ODF to kind of remind the notifiers that this is required and they need to get it done. We're also going to do an online road condition assessment as part of the second half of this. So, and being able to go online and complete a RCA and then and have it as part of the notification process. So that would be basically taking what you've already drawn as a unit, and then reporting what kind of roads and what the conditions of the roads and the crossings are in that area. That's kind of how we're envisioning it. We don't exactly know how it's going to work out, but that's what we're looking for. And then we're looking at a planning tool for small forest landowners. And this will be used by either consulting foresters or ODF foresters that go and work with small forest landowners for completing the RCA and looking at the parcel of land and looking at the RMA options that are available to them, but doing that outside of FERNS and not having that requirement of getting a FERNS count and going to the map and drawing all of that. So that's one of the other things that we're looking for. We're not 100% sure we're going to be able to get that done, but that is one of the biggest requests from ODF and from small forest landowners, is to have some type of a non-FERNS planning tool. It functions like the mapping there, but it has the resources within it to kind of plan your project and save that, and then eventually use that project to notify as well. So that is all I have. We're open for questions. It really, I'm going to stop sharing and kind of open this up for any kind of questions that anyone has. Again, we have like the experts around forest conservation tax credit, minimum options, SFISH, and can answer any of those questions that you may have, as well as anything with FERNS. Are you seeing anything in the chat?
Nope, nothing there.
Yeah, Eric.
Hey, good afternoon, Joe. Thank you for the presentation. Just curious to know, were you able to change the minimum or the maximum file size associated with uploads on documents?
That is part of the plan. That won't be part of December 1st, but we will get that soon after the first of the year. Let's see. Stephanie is asking, are SFISH and the Forest Conservation Tax Credit the same thing? I'm going to answer no, but who wants to take the details on that one? Angela? Abigail?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay.
They are not the same thing. They are both financial benefits for SFOs that were enacted in law in Senate Bills 1501 and 2. The SFISH program is a state-funded grant program that will pay for repairs for projects benefiting certain fish species. So culverts, water crossing issues, things like that. Josh Hansen is our SFISH coordinator, and he's not with us today. There is a page on the SFO office webpage. If you just Google SFO office, that should come up, that has a lot of details on the SFISH program and some Q&A, some FAQ type stuff that will hopefully answer some of the basic questions you might have about it, and it has some contact information to reach out for more information. The Forest Conservation Tax Credit Program is a tax credit that is available to SFOs who choose to leave a wider buffer than is absolutely required. It's the difference between the new standard practice and the older, wider buffer. It's a small strip that will remain that if the landowner chooses not to harvest that, then they can get a tax credit for the amount of stumpage value for those trees left in that area. And Abigail Spagel is here with us today, and if you have any specific questions about that, then she can help you with that.
I'm sharing that page for the minimum option of forest conservation credit. So really the main difference between the minimum option and the tax credit is the minimum option, you're cutting down to what the current buffer is. The forest conservation tax credit is you're cutting down to what the new buffer is, but you're getting a tax credit for the difference between the new buffer and the old buffer and the stumpage value of those the timber within that buffer. And honestly, it's a you know, on a large fish stream, it's a 10-foot buffer, but that could be for 1,000 feet. So there could be pretty significant stumpage value in there. And that's with the tax credit you get because you're not harvesting that timber. You get the tax credit for that stumpage value. So that's the difference. SFO allows you to cut it down to that old thing and take the harvest value now, or you get a tax credit for that value, and then there's a lien on that buffer for 50 years. Let's see if that answered the question. So Stephanie, if you still have more questions, feel free to speak up. Susan asking, what rules regarding RMA and roads apply when the SFO is not harvesting, but is managing the area, for example, removing invasive species? So who wants to take this?
I can help you, Joe.
Okay,
so really, when we're talking about things that are not harvesting, the first question we need to ask is if it's something that falls under the Forest Practices Act jurisdiction in the first place. So in your example about removing invasives, oftentimes just simply removing invasives is not something that the Oregon Department of Forestry would regulate unless it's specific to you doing those activities on an area where you are growing and managing for the harvest of your timber. So really, the differences in SFO rules are focused on RMA widths. And that's where Joe talked about which buffer requirement or which buffer option you're going to select. But what happens inside those RMAs and what happens everywhere else on the ground is very similar, pretty much the same as before. So if you're going to be doing invasive removal that has absolutely nothing to do with like a prior harvest or a stand of timber you're going to harvest in the future, that may not be our jurisdiction. Otherwise, all the same chemical rules would still apply. If you're going to use chemical removal, if you're going to use manual removal, it's the same. So you may just need to work with your local stewardship forester to see if the activity you're proposing is going to be something that falls under our jurisdiction in the first place. Hopefully that helps, Susan. Let us know if you need more.
I'm gonna stop sharing. Any more questions?
I see your comment about using chemicals or equipment. Is it just to remove invasives along a stream with no harvest associated, or is this in like an RMA you've already managed for timber? I mean, those are the kind of questions that we would be asking you to determine if you need a notification for that activity or not.
what I'm thinking of is just the normal activity we usually have had. It's, you know, the stream runs through the forest. So you have the buffers, and you don't want that buffer area to get clogged with undesirable plants or whatever. And so you want to take those out. Are the rules just the same as they have been? Because we've always been filing notifications for that if we're using a chainsaw or chemicals.
You would still want to do it if you've been filing notifications for that activity. Then I'm assuming you've probably needed to. I would continue to do that now. Some of the rules in the new rule set, depending on which option you choose, may prevent you from doing as much management in those RMAs as you're used to. But again, working with your local stewardship forester, particularly in this time frame where we have old buffers that we need to have successful regeneration of timber species in, that we're still managing, but now we're going to have new buffer widths. And so we're going to have a couple years here where we may need to manage inside those old buffers under the new rule set. I would recommend you just working with the stewardship forester you usually do on how to achieve those goals in there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I'm gonna let everyone go and enjoy the extra 2 hours back. Again, any questions, reach out to ODF. We can answer those. This will be coming live on December 1st. And we look forward to bringing the product and answering any questions you might have. Thanks, everyone.
Maria.